So for me, I really view art therapy as the process of creating itself, being a healer, and also having the ability to use what we call art therapy directives. They're like little lesson plans to help someone overcome these obstacles, whether it's anxiety, depression, family issues, grief, trauma. It doesn't matter what the issues are. If you can't find the words, we can help you through images, through color, just through creativity.
This is the MSquared podcast featuring author Miranda Mathis. You will hear tips, tricks, and inspiration that will help you raise and educate little ones who are happy, safe, and kind. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. This is season 2 of the MSquared podcast. I'm Sarah, the producer, and I'm here again with author Miranda Mathis and also our guest, Robyn Schindler. Hey, ladies. How's it going?
Good morning.
It's going well. Thanks for asking.
Good. So today I'm looking forward to having this conversation because Robyn is going to help us tackle the ever important topic of mental health and how she uses art therapy to address things like grief, anxiety, depression, and more. I think this is going to be a very valuable conversation. So thank you for joining us, Robyn.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So if you can, just give us a 30-second-ish intro to who you are and what you do so people can know who you are.
Sure. So thank you so much, Sarah. I am Robyn Schindler. I'm the owner and clinical director of a group therapy practice called Paint the Stars Art Therapy. And we are located throughout New Jersey. We're in Manalapan, Ocean Township, and now Princeton as well. We see kids as young as 3 and go all the way up. So we work with kids, teens, adults, dealing with a variety of different diagnoses and issues within their lives. In addition to that, I'm also an artist myself, and I'm an author, and I am a mom of 2 boys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And Miranda, she's all yours.
Well, thank you, Robyn. I am delighted to have you because I know this is a conversation that is so important and will be so important to so many people, So I would like to ask you, how did you discover art and how did you find its value as far as therapy? And how did you end up in your career?
So I have been an artist myself, Miranda, for as long as I can remember. Art has always been like a passion of mine for sure, but I didn't realize when I was younger that I've always used it as a tool for self-care and for relaxation for myself. I didn't actually discover what art therapy was until I was well into my undergraduate studies at college. I was actually struggling with finding the right path for myself. I knew I wanted to work with kids and families. I knew I wanted to be in a helping service, but I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go in. And my sister encouraged me to research art therapy because she knew of my background in art and she knew of my desire to help people. The second I started researching about art therapy, it was immediate. I knew this was the correct path for me, and I knew that this was something that I could really help a lot of people with. So I then, again, did a lot of research on my own, and I started looking into how I could develop a career in this. And now that I'm doing it, now that I'm full throttle that art therapist, it's amazing to see what you can do with art and its healing properties, because I don't think a lot of people realize what tapping into that creativity can do in terms of feeling better about yourself and overcoming obstacles.
That is so true because as an author, and I know you understand this, a lot of times our writing comes from experiences or things that have impacted us in our lives, or we've seen the impact that it had on others. So just take a minute to get our audience to understand the impact of art therapy, as well as understand how it's important, something that they may not understand. So if you could just enlighten us on that and let us know how important it is and how insightful it can be to many people.
Oh, 100%. It's funny, art therapists and people in my field, we always joke because I think a lot of people have this false understanding of what they think art therapy is. So they believe, oh, you're going to take my drawing and you're just going to analyze it and tell me what you think it's about. Or, they'll say, you'll just tell me to draw a picture and it'll make me feel better. It's so much more than that, right? So the impact of art therapy, it starts from a person's motivation for wanting to get better and wanting to feel better. So what we have is we see a lot of clients come to us that have said, I've tried traditional therapy. I've tried different things and different tactics, and it's just not working. And so we kind of step in as this extended branch on the mental health tree, right? And we say, okay, so we're going to help you tap into that creativity. And there are so many different ways that we do it. There isn't, the question I get asked so often is like, can you really explain what you do as an art therapist? Well, there's so many different things that I do as an art therapist. It would take a very long podcast for me to go into all of the details of what I do. But basically, I want to help you work through these difficult feelings and these difficult thoughts. And you don't have to be an artist. You don't have to have any artistic background whatsoever. You just have to have that willingness to be able to get in touch with that creativity, that other part of our brain that maybe we're not using right now, but we need to use it. And so for me, I really view art therapy as the process of creating itself, being a healer, and also having the ability to use what we call art therapy directives. They're like little lesson plans to help someone overcome these obstacles, whether it's anxiety, depression, family issues, grief, trauma. It doesn't matter what the issues are. If you can't find the words, we can help you through images, through color, just through creativity.
You mentioned grief, and grief is difficult at any age. It's difficult to navigate. It's difficult to deal with. I experienced grief, and I even wrote a book about grief called My Dad's an Angel, because I know kids experience grief, and they may experience the same or differently. But as parents, as teachers, as anyone that's in charge of a child, we need to understand it a little more and help children as well as ourselves and friends navigate through it. So if you don't mind, how do you deal with helping children deal with grief in a healthy way, whether they're dealing with a divorce, whether they're dealing with separation or loss of a friend or even a pet? What would you suggest or recommend in dealing with grief in a healthy way?
Sure. So first I want to say, Miranda, I don't think I knew that you had written a book for children on grief. I knew some of your other books, but I don't think I knew that one. And so the irony coming through, because I'm an author, and the book that I wrote was a children's book to assist families with grief. And I wrote it when I lost my father. So it was my own personal grief journey that again, as I mentioned before, I was an artist, not really a writer. But when it came time to process my own grief, it came out as words. It came out as writing. And so you just don't know where that grief is going to take you and what path it's going to put you on. But so because I was coping with my own loss at the time, my brain, and I wonder if yours did the same, kind of went to what is out there to help children and families when they go through this? Because here I am, a grown adult, and I'm having a really difficult time coping with this. So I can only imagine, what is it like for kids? So a huge tool that I use, which I know you'll love, is bibliotherapy. So the idea of taking books that have a purpose, and we use those books in our sessions. It is one of my favorite tools to bring out when I know that a child is dealing with a loss. And you did such a beautiful job just in your question of hitting on some of those main losses that I see every day. I like to tell kids that grief is like an ocean. It's unpredictable. We don't know when the waves are going to come in, and we don't know how big those waves are going to be. Are they going to be so big that they're going to take us under and, we'll be underwater for a little while, or are they going to be kind of small and manageable? We can just kind of hop over them. Grief feels like waves, and that's what I want children to understand, right? You can be happy one moment, and then very quickly, the sadness can kind of hit you. And that's what we need to help children understand that they can expect. So when I see a children, whether it's dealing with a sudden loss, something that they weren't prepared for, or a loss like divorce, which is a very big loss that we see quite often in our practice, I don't think a lot of people out there realize that to a child, when your family gets divorced, that grief feels the same as losing a loved one permanently. And then, of course, the other one that you hit on, which is pets, we see that one so very often. And every child processes grief totally different, right? So I can't necessarily have an A to Z list of what I'm going to do with each child. Instead, I take my own personal steps. I try to evaluate the situation of what's going on. If I know the child or I know the family well by that point, I typically have a good idea of maybe what art mediums I might want to use with them. Do I think that they would like to create a memory box, for example? Or with a divorced family, I try to do family sessions together. I want everybody in a room together so that this child understands that even though there is a loss of this sense of family, something that's not going anywhere is the love of a parent. They're not losing that. And so I like to do that all together as a family. So every session can be tailored, completely individualized for that client, depending on what they're going through, depending on where they are in that wave of grief. And I will say, it varies. I've had some kids where they lose a pet and it takes them 4 to 5 sessions to really fully process it. And I've had other kids where they've lost a grandparent and within 1 to 2 sessions, they've really done a good job processing it. So you can't really say what they're going to need until you're in it in that moment with them. And we like to be that space for them, that safe space, that hand holding that they need. And books are definitely top of my list. Bibliotherapy is fantastic.
When it comes to anxiety, though, and depression, what are some of the tools you use to deal with those kinds of challenges? As well as if you can share some of the stories that helped in specific situations.
Sure. Anxiety and depression are top of the list of things that we see. I would say the majority of the kids, especially that we see, are dealing with some sort of underlying generalized anxiety disorder or a coupled disorder of anxiety and depression. So we do see that a whole lot. Art therapists love to brag about their toolbox. So a lot of people think that the toolbox is just what art mediums we have to offer, which absolutely that's going to be a huge part of it. But then there's also the part of those art therapy directives that I mentioned before that are super helpful. So I know for me, I have probably in my head at any given time hundreds of art therapy directives swirling around in there. And so again, when I meet a child or an individual and I understand what kind of anxiety they have, what's triggering it, where is it coming from? Maybe I don't know any of that information and I have to start from square one. So a great example of something that I might do is something called an inside-outside mask. This is one of my favorite art therapy directives to do. So you get this blank canvas of a mask. It's an actual mask. And I tell the child, we're going to do both parts of the mask, the inside part and the outside, right? So the inside part of the mask is the private side. If you put that mask on, nobody can see the inside of that mask, right? No one is going to be privy to that information. So the inside is going to hold how we're really feeling, what we're really thinking about, what are the thoughts that go through our head every day. The outside of the mask can be more, how do you see yourself every day? How do you think people view you every day? So there's a lot of different avenues that you can take it. It is such an eye-opening experience with every single kid that I do this with because no two are ever the same. And I have done a lot of mask making. So a lot of children express themselves through color. Like the inside of the mouth, they might start and I might see a lot of red. And I won't assume in my head, oh, they must be feeling really angry because they're using red. Just because red is my angry color doesn't mean it's their angry color, right? There's cultural differences that fall into place here. There are different cultures that look at different colors in a different way than maybe, you or I might. And so we have to take that into account as well. So I don't assume. I also try not to ask too many questions. Instead, I'll just comment along the way and I'll say, wow, you're using a whole lot of that color. There's a lot of red there. They might take it upon themselves then to say to me, that's my angry color. And I have a lot of anger inside my head. I might have kids who will put words down instead of color. I've had a mask recently that was made, and the whole inside, honestly, it broke my heart, but the whole inside was just a lot of negative self-talk, ugly, stupid, words like that this child is putting in the inside of their mouth because that's what they're thinking about on a daily basis. So it's easy for me to start to peel those layers back and understand where that depression is coming from, where that anxiety might be coming from. So these are really the types of tools, again, that I like to use. I like to have these more experiential art mediums that a child can kind of take their own way, but it helps me as the therapist. So everything that I give a child to do in some way is going to help me along the way to help them.
Do you have any suggestions or best tools that parents and teachers can use when it comes to using art in a therapeutic way, maybe in the classroom or something they can do at home?
That's a really great question. And I love that you're asking that question because this is something I try to put out there all of the time, especially when I meet parents. So one of the first things I like to say to parents, and I could say it to teachers too, would be, you don't want to direct the art. And I know, especially with like art teachers, that's a very hard thing to say because art teachers have a different job. Their job is to teach them, we want this to look like this. It's very different, right? But if you're just a regular teacher in a classroom or you're a parent at home and you see a child is drawing, you don't want to say things like, oh, do you really want to make this guy red? Because right there, you've hindered and you've stopped their creative process. Okay, so there was like judgment in that statement. You didn't want the sky to be red, and so you put out there that their sky should not be red. They were going to stop their process. If they were pushing something out, they're not going to do it anymore. And that is something we don't want to happen. We're saying something like, oh, sweetie, don't you want to stay on the line? I know as a parent, sometimes like we all struggle with that and want things to look nice and be neat, but you're squashing the natural creativity. And so we're preventing a child at that point from getting in touch with what they're really trying to create. So I say that parents and teachers can definitely try mirroring or like verbalizing just what you're seeing in the moment. Wow, what a great color for that sky. It's so bright. Instead of judging it and trying to stop it and tearing it down, right? Or I love the way that you color in your own way. This looks so fabulous. Positive encouragement is a really wonderful tool for parents, for teachers, for anybody who interacts with children, right? So if your child draws something and you're not really quite sure what it is, one of the other things that I like to teach parents is to say something like, I know what I think it is, but can you tell me what you think it is first? So it's like you're kind of playing into their game. Like if they're like, oh, mommy, can you tell me what I drew? Oh, I so badly want to be able to guess what you drew. So that's a different approach to it. And I would also say that teachers and parents can start utilizing art more as a tool for regulating emotion, calming down, right? In today's age, like we're so quick to hand a device to our children to help them calm down, when really that's probably the worst thing that you can give a child to try and calm down. It's not helping them express anything. It's honestly like stifling those feelings, right? We're like building a wall. So instead of doing that, you say, like, I see you're upset. Here, do you want to draw me a picture? Do you want to create something to tell me how you're feeling? Or I see that you're getting angry. Here's a piece of paper. Scribble it out. Get all that anger out on that piece of paper for me, and then we'll do something with it afterwards. It could be a very eye-opening experience to any parent or teacher who attempts to start doing.
Yeah. So, what do you recommend for adults or anyone listening now that might be intimidated by art or not sure where to start or to how to do things on their own? Should they go to
Mm,
classes? What do you
mm.
recommend for an art therapist?
So the first thing I would say for adults, no, don't jump into any classes. Don't be intimidated by art or by the idea of art. So children naturally play and create. This is their language, right? As adults, we grow up and we start to separate from the creativity, which is so sad. Not all of us do, but a lot of us start to
Mhm.
separate from that creativity. So you don't want to be intimidated. You want to try and not be a critic in your own head. So I think a lot of adults that come in, it's right away like, I can't even draw a stick figure. What am I supposed to do here? And I love when people say that to me because my response is, well, that's great because we're not drawing stick figures today. So we don't
Mhm.
have to worry about drawing stick figures. We are going to be playing with color, playing with images. Close your eyes and create a visual of what you're feeling, of what you're going through. For all adults, what I tell everybody across the board is you really just need to be motivated to change, motivated to trying something new, and willing to try. If you have that, you don't need to take classes. You don't need to interview people. You don't need to do research. You just need to be able to give it a try. We're not creating museum worthy art pieces. We're using art as a tool. Very different.
Thank you. You provided so much information. It's especially when you start talking about colors, because the color
Mm,
for me that I may draw something or use maybe have a certain meaning for me, may be different from someone else. So
mm,
especially with kids, they may say the
mhm,
sky is purple because that's the mood they're feeling, and they have their way of
mm.
seeing things differently. So I like how you said, be open, not suggestive, or try to be more objective and just listen and let them be free in what they're creating. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn this over to Sarah, but I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming on. You provided so much insight and enlightenment. I'm
Absolutely.
very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miranda, for taking the time and honestly also for these very thoughtful questions. They were wonderful.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, this has been so interesting, and I think people will get a lot out of this because
Mhm.
I really didn't. I thought I understood art therapy as well
Mhm.
before, and you really
Wow.
painted a great picture.
You
um,
did.
Analogy intended. I think it's just it's a lot more clear what that entails and how helpful and how unintimidating it is. So thank you so much for describing that so well. Um,
Mhm.
I wanted to ask where can people connect with you if they're interested in either chatting with you or working with you, or do you have any resources that you can share or would like
Sure,
to share?
definitely. I would say the best way for anyone to connect with me would be through either our website, paintthestarsarttherapy.com. There is a way for you to directly email us through that website. You can also, we are obnoxiously all over social media. So you can find us on like Facebook and Instagram, also Paint the Stars Art Therapy, Twitter, PTS Art Therapy. It's not Twitter anymore, I still call it Twitter. And we are on TikTok as well. Let's Paint the Stars Art Therapy. So any of those social media realms, I find that a lot of people like to reach out to us through that. That's not an issue either. Someone, either myself or the office manager, typically will be the person checking in on that. And so they'll let you know how you can get more information. And, we also, you can definitely call us and email us. All of that information is through our website. But I personally am always happy to answer emails, especially if you just have questions of what is this process like and how do I get it started. So feel free to reach out any of those ways.
Okay, great. And what kind of services do you offer through your website? Are people able to work with you remotely, or does it all have to be in person?
Sure, we definitely still offer both. I will say the majority of people we see prefer to come in person. Again, when you're doing the art therapy component, there's a different vibe. So you definitely want to be in person because you want to be using those tools. And I know for myself as the therapist, I want to be there and see you using those tools and get everything out of it that I possibly can. We do offer virtual. We offer a variety of services. So for kids, we do play therapy, sand tray work, art therapy, and then regular talk therapy. For adults, we offer talk therapy, art therapy, something called parental counseling, which is where we sit with parents who are really struggling on how they're parenting, what's going on in the home, offering parenting tips, teaching parents how to set rules and limits within the house and use consequences appropriately. A whole different mess of stuff there.
Wow.
And so that all as well can be in person and virtual.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Can you just really quick before we end, I always like to ask for just a couple takeaways, 1 to 3 action items that parents and teachers can do to maybe start incorporating art therapy or just something related to art therapy or better mental health practices into their kids' routines.
Okay, I love that. That's a great idea. So the first thing I would probably say would be something that we discussed before. So trying not to interject or interrupt the natural play, the natural art that's taking place, whether it's in your home or at school. You don't want to direct your children's play or creativity. You want to be the observer or the audience. You want to let them be the director. So I think that would be something important for people to try to remember, moms and dads. The second takeaway I think that would be great is you want to see a lot of differences in your home, I think, as a parent. And so one of the huge tools that I teach parents is validation. Being able to validate your child's emotion in the moment, recognizing it, keeping in mind that a lot of times when kids are angry or anxious or depressed in the home, it's because they feel like they're not being seen or heard. So the more that you validate, hey, I see you. I get that you're feeling frustrated. I get that you're worried or upset right now. What can we do to work through that? As opposed to quickly, again, trying to shut it down. You know, like, oh, you're upset. Go play your video game. Go FaceTime your friend. Like, we're so quick with our responses instead of actually feeling what's going on in the moment. So I think that would be something great for a lot of parents to try and do.
Yeah.
And then I would say the last recommendation would be to pepper in as much positivity as you can throughout the day. Most kids, if not all the kids that we see, suffer from low self-esteem. I believe it's the root of a lot of issues that we see coming through our door: depression, anxiety, anger. There is always low self-esteem within that child when they come in. And so my favorite tool would be adding some just very simple self-esteem boosters, like at dinner time. One of my favorite things to tell parents to do at dinner time: everybody goes around the table and says something nice about the person next to them. And everybody goes around the table again and says something nice about themselves. It's a really simple tactic. I know a lot of families don't even have time to do like the dinner time routine. You could do it at any point in time. It could be right after school. It could be on the weekends. Even if we could just do it on the weekends, that's a huge difference. So whenever you're able to do a simple exercise like that, you're going to see some pretty huge results.
I love that. That's a really great little easy tip that people can use even in their busy lives. Yeah. Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Robyn. It's been
Thank
great.
you guys so much. This was wonderful. I really enjoyed being here and I loved hearing your questions as well.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm happy we were able to do this. So, Sarah, you're awesome as usual. So I appreciate you as well.
Thank you. All right, ladies, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, guys. Feel good.
Thanks for listening. Head over to MSquaredBooks.com where you can find all the latest books and hear about upcoming events like live readings. See you next time.